And one council on the other end of the spectrum is a city council in Michigan, which voted recently to ban any religious, ethnic, racial, political or sexual orientation group flags on city buildings. So, it's essentially a ban on flying the pride flag. This town, Hamtramck, is got an all-Muslim council these days. It's now a largely Muslim town of 28,000 people. But a story popped up this week. The LGBT community is sort of quite upset about all of this. And I suppose the delicious irony is they're saying that in the beginning we thought, oh, these Muslims are coming to the town of Hamtramck. This is wonderful for diversity, etc., etc. And then they've sort of turned it back on them, and now they feel betrayed.
Yes, I mean, you'd have to have a heart of stone not to laugh, wouldn't you? It's a story that has played out repeatedly in Europe, in Canada, and other liberal countries in recent years. It's that wonderful moment when one minority discovers that just because they're a minority and they've met another minority doesn't necessarily mean the other minority adores them. Who could have guessed, other than those of us who said this for a long time and were ignored and sometimes ridiculed? It's plain as anything that the Muslim world does not adore homosexuality. All the studies show that. And even when Muslims come to Western countries, it doesn't mean that they get straight in line with the LGBTQIA+ agenda in particular. And yes, as I say, I mean, the rather plaintive cries of local gay activists who said, hey, we supported the Muslims when they came into our town. How come they're not supporting us? All one can say is, welcome to the real world, darling.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend until they're not, certainly in this case. The US Senate, I can't believe this. They've erased their dress code standards. So now the number 2 Senate Democrat, Dick Durbin, he's given his opinion on the decision. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I'm concerned about it. The senator in question from Pennsylvania is a personal friend, but I think we need to have standards when it comes to what we're wearing on the floor of the Senate, and we're in the process of discussing that right now as to what those standards will be.
Now, this has all been done for John Fetterman, who rocks around most of the time in hoodies and shorts. He has to stick his head into the chamber or vote from doorways because he hasn't been allowed on the floor of the Senate. I sort of take the view that if you want to work in a professional job, you have to dress like a professional. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be there in the first place. But have a listen to this. This is Fetterman responding this week to Republicans slamming this decision.
Well, her platform, really, she runs on more and more dingling, picks, on in the meetings over in Congress. So again, I'm not really sure why she cares how I dress, but she really takes it a different way.
Now, I'm not sure we want to know about John Fetterman's dingling, but what on earth is going on here, Douglas? Where are the standards?
Well, the first thing is, John Fetterman is a really sad case. He had a massive stroke when he was running for the Senate, and the Democrats just made him continue to run anyway. And neither his wife nor any of his family seem to have said the decent thing, which was, for God's sake, stop. The man is suffering badly in public. And even now, when he's partially recovered, he's clearly not all there, and it's very sad. Of all the people who are cognitively impaired in the Senate, John Fetterman really stands out, and that's really saying something. But the striking thing about Fetterman is, yes, the sort of slovenly dress is, as you say, something which it would be embarrassing in a school, but in the Senate of the United States is really something. I have a colleague at the New York Post, John Levine, who yesterday in New York went around some of New York's restaurants dressed as Senator Fetterman and wasn't allowed in to quite a number of the New York restaurants. And it proved a very interesting point. How is it that if you dress like John Fetterman, you wouldn't be allowed into some of the smarter restaurants in New York or DC, but you are allowed into the Senate. I don't think it's the biggest thing, but it is a sign of a type of decline in the Senate and I think in Washington as a whole.
I think it means the West is falling. It's the same in the office. I see all these people wearing untucked shirts and unironed shirts and short sleeves. You know, dress up for the office now. Very quickly before
there are even
we go,
people
Douglas.
without pocket. There are even people without pocket handkerchiefs. You see sometimes.
I know, and I reckon that's a dead set disgrace. Now, very quickly before we go, I mean, you know, it's another week of Biden gaffes, but I've just quickly got to show you one of my favourites: his interaction with the president of Brazil. And he wouldn't even shake his hand, and the president at the end, he's clearly just so knotted. He's like, I'm out of here. How good.
Yeah, it's everyone who's on stage at any time with Biden, friend or foe, has to expect the unexpected at any moment. And he might walk out halfway through your speech. He might just leave at the end and forget that you're there. That's as I've said to Rita before, that's the peril of the American president always being literally one footstep away from disaster.
Yes, at least one thing we can say about Biden, he does wear a suit. Thank you, Douglas Murray, for joining me tonight.
Great pleasure as always.